A very good day to all of you. So, today we will discuss the poet John Donne. John Donne, he was an English poet, scholar who was born into a Catholic family. So, if we talk about the main characteristics of his poetry, he is considered the representative of metaphysical poets. Later, we will discuss what is metaphysical poetry, what are the features of metaphysical poetry, and why the poetry of John Donne is considered as metaphysical poetry. So, he has written many sonnets and he has written some religious poems also, and he is considered as a remarkable love poet, a religious poet, as well as a great metaphysical poet. Why he is called metaphysical poet? Because his style is characterized by abrupt openings and various paradoxes, ironies, and dislocations. So he has mastered in this type of poetry, and his works are noted for the metaphorical as well as the sensual style. So today we will discuss John Donne as a metaphysical poet. So he is considered as the leader and founder of the metaphysical school of poetry. Why? Let me tell you that why he is considered as a metaphysical founder of metaphysical school of poetry, because his poetry is a revolt against the popular current. And first of all, who used the term metaphysical for his poetry? So I'm telling you that it was Dryden who used the term metaphysical for his poetry, and he said Donne affects the metaphysics. Later on, Dr. Johnson called Donne and his followers the metaphysical poets. Since then, the word metaphysical has been used for Donne and his followers. So, now in brief, I'm going to tell you what is metaphysical poetry. So, metaphysical, the word is made up of two words, meta and physical. So, meta means beyond, and physical means relating with this world. So, the world will mean, the sense is what is beyond physical. So, it means something supernatural and transcendental. So, it's concerned with fundamental problems of life and death and soul, even after death. So, the term metaphysical poetry means poetry that deals with metaphysical subjects. So, let me tell you some of the characteristics of metaphysical poetry. So, we will have a quick glance at the main characteristics of metaphysical poetry before we proceed to discuss or analyze Donne's poetry. So, some features, they are the novel thoughts and expressions. Novel thought means new expressions, new ideas, a totally different poetry, and its use of conceit. Conceit means conceit means it's a figure of speech, which means far-fetched imagery, far-fetched. We can say when we use far-fetched imagery, then it is conceit. And metaphysical poetry is a poetry full of wit, and another feature is obscurity. The poetry is obscure, and learning are the main characteristics of metaphysical poetry. So these are the main chief features of metaphysical poetry, and these characteristics are very well found in John Donne's poetry. So when Dryden Johnson called Donne as a metaphysical poetry, they referred to the style of Donne. So the let me tell you one more thing, that metaphysical poets, they were men of learning, and their poetry reveals their scholarship, their poetry reveals their knowledge. So from this point of view, Donne is a great metaphysical poet, and to show his learning is his chief object, and in his poetry he has twisted his vast learning. Due to this, his poetry becomes very difficult to understand. And in Donne's poetry, there is always an antithesis between natural and divine knowledge. He is always preoccupied with mortality and death, which fills his poetry with a macabre element. In You will read the poem "Death Be Not Proud." So, if we will go through this sonnet, we will find that he has adopted the theme of death, and he hates that death is nothing; it is not powerful. So, another feature of metaphysical poetry is new thoughts and expression. So, Donne's poetry is purely intellectual and it makes an appeal to the intellectuals. His thoughts are often new. He has expressed his thoughts in a unique manner. In short, he played with thoughts. In the canonization, The Flea, and some of his more poems, he has expressed totally new thoughts and expressions. And if we talk about another feature, then metaphysical poetry is full of obscurity. And in Donne's poetry also we find obscurity and vagueness of subject. This is linked with sensibility of literary wit and philosophical conceptions. And he frequently combines dissimilar ideas. Thus, his poetry is very harsh, obscure, puzzling, and he is very puzzling poet. So, another feature of his poetry and as well as metaphysical poetry is poetry of wit. So, it's a another chief characteristic of metaphysical poetry, and it is also the characteristic of Donne's poetry also, because it fashions his feeling and thought. Passion, sentiment, sensibility are subordinated to wit. They are given secondary position. Wit is given more importance. So, his wit is unique in the discovery of comparison and analogies, and it's realistic and straightforward. So, the heterogeneous material is compelled into unity by the a rapid mingling of thoughts. Another feature is use of conceit. So, conceit, Donne makes an abundant use of conceit, and conceit is an instrument to reveal wit, knowledge. So, I am going to tell you what is conceit. Conceit is a comparison between two unlike objects or things. So, I have told you earlier that simile is also a comparison and metaphor is also a comparison. But so, what is difference between simile, metaphor, and conceit? Is that conceit is a far-fetched comparison. Far-fetched means the comparison between totally two unlike objects. So, Donne conceits are far-fetched and his imagery is obscure. So, if you will read the poem The Flea, you will get the point clear, that because in this poem the flea becomes a marriage bed, because it bites the beloved and it bites the poet. So the blood of the two, it gets mingled in the flea, so that marriage bad, the flea becomes the marriage bad. So it's totally altogether different kind of comparison. So, and as I've told you that Donne is also a poet of love. He is a metaphysical poet. So, as a poet of love too, Donne is a metaphysical poet, because for him love is not at all physical. Love is all about spiritual. Thus, it can be said that Donne plunged deep in metaphysical pursuits, and his selection of subject matter, his treatment, his diction and style prove him to be a true and great metaphysical poet. I hope you have got this, that John Donne, he is remarkable metaphysical poet, as well as you have understood the chief features of metaphysical poetry. In the later videos we will read and analyze the poetry of John Donne. Thank you.